Start off with.
Well, it's the great purge of the French nuclear champion. That's the big story today. That's the headline of Les Echos, the French business paper. They're talking, of course, about the nuclear firm Areva, which has announced massive losses. They've lost at least €1 billion over the last year. Their CEO has had to admit, and they're going to have to make €1.5 million of budget cuts. That means, of course, plenty of job losses. And this isn't just a firm, if you like, for the French newspapers. It's a big source of national pride. So the papers really are quite upset about this. Le Figaro on their front page have got difficulties for the French nuclear giant, and inside they've interviewed that new CEO. They call him the bomb disposal expert. He admits that times are pretty tough, with governments all around the world being less and less enthusiastic about building nuclear plants since the Fukushima disaster, of course. But as you might expect, he does tell them he still believes that nuclear has a bright future and that France will remain independent in terms of energy in the near future.
And this comes after months of debate in French politics about scrapping nuclear power altogether.
Exactly, and this is still very controversial. La Croix, the Catholic paper, has got Nuclear, the Controversy as its front page today, and inside they've done a big 6-page dossier putting nuclear on trial, putting the case for the prosecution and the case for the defence. Now, the prosecution case is, of course, that you just can't guarantee there will never be a nuclear accident in France, and the industry has a long history of not being very transparent. They say the Japanese government covered up lots of things about Fukushima, and the French nuclear industry has in the past covered up a lot of the health risks to its workers. And they also say, of course, that it's expensive. But on the other side of the coin, it would also be expensive to scrap, and that would make France dependent on foreign oil and perhaps indeed put up France's carbon emissions, because they say the renewable alternatives just can't really fill the place. It would mean more fossil fuel use.
Something else that's quite expensive is running a campaign when you want to be president, as Dominique de Villepin announced over the weekend. And so now the field's starting to get quite crowded, isn't it?
It really is, especially on the right. Look at all these candidates here on the front page of Libération. Their headline is Sarkozy surrounded. All these faces are right-wing candidates running against him in that election. So you've got Marine Le Pen here on the far right, the centrist François Bayrou a bit to the left of Sarkozy, and Dominique de Villepin, his old rival, there at the bottom. Now, inside the paper says the president is really starting to worry about this, judging by the noises coming from his office. What he's worried about is a reverse 2002 scenario. In 2002, of course, there were so many candidates on the left, they sort of cancelled one another out, and it ended up being 2 right-wing candidates, Jean-Marie Le Pen and Jacques Chirac, in the second round of the presidential election. Now the paper says the right is worried that could happen again, but on their side. So all those different candidates would cancel each other out, and we'd end up with Marine Le Pen, Jean-Marie's daughter, and François Hollande, the socialist, in the second round of the presidency. And they say if that's unlikely, we've had so many upsets recently in French politics that all the bets are off. Look at François' front page. All of these people have caused some kind of upset in French politics this year, so they say there's never been an election that was harder to predict.
Now, François Hollande, he's of course the main candidate on the left. He set out his policies a little bit more clearly yesterday. What are the papers making of that?
Well, he was talking about what bits of Sarkozy's policy he's going to reverse, especially the raise in the retirement age. Now, it was widely expected, including among lots of people who probably will vote for him, that he would take the retirement age back down from 62 to 60. Now, he admitted yesterday that actually he won't be doing that, except for a very small group of people who've been working since they were 17 or 18. So that will disappoint a lot of socialist voters. He's also been saying he would renegotiate that Euro treaty that Sarkozy signed last week, but Le Figaro points out we don't really know how he would do that.
Right, and now we're going to finish off with a French farmer taking on one of the world's biggest biotech firms.
Yes, this is in Le Monde. Paul François is a cereal farmer in the Charente region of France who says he fell into a coma in 2004 after breathing in the fumes of a herbicide that he was using. Now, that's made by chemical giant Monsanto, and it was banned in France in 2007, but he says the only reason it wasn't banned sooner was that they lied to the French regulators about the health risks of this chemical. So it goes up in a civil trial in Lyon starting today, where he's got this David and Goliath legal process going on, where he on his own is taking on one of the world's biggest biotech companies, an American firm, and he's hoping if he can win, that will be a French legal first, and it might encourage more farmers to take on the big biotech companies who make these chemicals.
That takes a lot of guts. All right, thanks very much, Elena, for that look at the French papers. Before we move on, a quick reminder of our top stories here on France